left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. It ain't the left side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the Fin Side, recapping the Dolphins' victory over the San Francisco 49ers. They certainly keep things interesting for us. It's never an easy win. Dolphins win on the last play of the game thanks to a stop by Kiko Alonso and Ndamukong Suh and a slew of other defensive linemen. You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on iTunes, and on YouTube. Paul, before we get to the football game, Jason Taylor nominated as a potential finalist for the Hall of Fame. Do you think he's going to get in this year?
He's got a really good chance. I mean, he's a likable dude. He's got the popularity aspect outside of what he did on the football field, from everything from Dancing with the Stars to his charity foundation. And then what he did on the football field as well is pretty astronomical. So I hope so. I know his foundation's been a friend of the show. We've had South Lebanon in the past, and I know Jason's listened to us in the past. And yeah, he's a great dude who really deserves it based on his play on the field with everything else eliminated. He's likable, so I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think the likability factor, his what he does outside of football, the fact that he can get on camera, that he's marketable, I think that's going to be the thing that pushes him over. I mean, obviously, based on his play alone, he could do very well, or he could probably get in there based on his play alone, but I think that pushes him in, because the other side of that is Chris Dolman, Kevin Green. You look at these guys who took a while to get into the Hall of Fame, weren't first ballot guys, even though they were, third and fourth all time or top five all time in sacks at the time. Maybe a reason he doesn't. But eventually Jason Taylor is definitely going to get into the Hall of Fame. Paul, let's move on to the game. A few things. First, Devontae Parker, Brandon Albert, Laramie Tunsil look like they're all going to be healthy for the Ravens game on December 4th. Do you see them playing?
I wouldn't be surprised if at least 2 out of the 3 of those guys play. Definitely think Albert will be back. I mean, good God, the guy had 6 people pop his wrist back into place just so he could come back out in that game. I know he wants to be back out there, and I'm not going to discount the surprisingly great job that Sam Young has done at left tackle. Really hasn't allowed very much, but Sam Young is not Brandon Albert. Hopefully Tunsil will be back. Hopefully Parker will be back. Pouncey's a guy that, don't rush him back. He's got that chronic hip injury. Steen has done a more than serviceable job at center, even though he had one noticeable flub in this game. Get Pouncey healthy. You're in a playoff push now. I know the Ravens are a tough opponent, but you got to get Pouncey healthy, and that's not going to happen playing him.
See, I'm not all that worried about Mike Pouncey. I mean, I agree the Dolphins are a better team with him on the field. I think from a leadership and a communication standpoint at center, he's big, but to me, getting Tunsil and getting Brandon Albert back on the left side is the most important thing. Sam Young, like you said, I agree. He's done an admirable job filling in. That's for sure. And when we signed Sam Young, I remember the Dolphins destroying him when he was a Jaguar last year in the second game. I thought, this guy's terrible. I mean, he's a downgrade from Jason Fox, but he has filled in admirably at that left tackle spot. So before the game started, Paul, Armando Salguero and Colin Kaepernick get into an incident where Colin Kaepernick, just showing what a mental midget this guy is been against oppression for African Americans in the United States, which is an important issue. Don't get me wrong. And then he completely devalues everything he's saying by showing up wearing a Fidel Castro shirt. And Armando Salguero, who has deep roots in Cuba, and his family's from Cuba, had a lot of problems. His family had a lot of problems in Cuba because of Fidel Castro that I won't get into, takes issue with him. I was really happy the way Armando Salguero stood up for himself. I loved the questions he asked about the issues that really showed what type of moron Colin Kaepernick is. Colin Kaepernick had a great game on Sunday, and that's the nicest thing you'll probably ever hear me say about Colin Kaepernick. Paul, your take on it?
Yeah, I really didn't know much of Armando's history. I didn't know that he was born in Cuba. I didn't know that as part of legally leaving Cuba, his family actually got torn apart, where his father had to stay behind. So, I mean, it is nice seeing Armando speak from a position of his history and you name it. I'm not the biggest fan of most of his pieces. I think we've made that clear on the show. I don't like a lot of what he does journalistically, but I did think that this was a very valid thing that he brought up. It's this Colin Kaepernick thing. Unfortunately, it's been a hot button issue around the NFL. I really wish everyone early on had just kind of turned their back when he took a knee and was like, whatever, go ahead, take your knee, and just ignored it, because the guy's an idiot. And good for Armando helping bring that to light. But yeah, it's I can't stand Kaepernick anyway. So.
Well, and the thing is, it could potentially be an issue or a conversation that he could start, but you've got to start with facts first. You think Colin Kaepernick's going to talk about 74% increase in murdered police officers this year? Absolutely not. He's picking hand-picked, sensationalized, media-driven incidents that are spaced months apart and trying to say that, hey, I want to bring awareness to something. I mean, I'm sorry, but this can't be your poster boy. But anyway, enough of that. Let's move on to the game, Paul. I got to tell you, I did not watch the first quarter. I was coming back from Kansas City, but I have gone back and watched it since then. And I was thinking, you know what? By the second quarter, the Dolphins might be up 2 touchdowns already. Not the case. 7-8 minutes into the game, by the time I got to my fiance's house, the Dolphins were down 7-0. 49ers had the ball close to midfield, and they were getting the ball at halftime again. Then from that point on, the Dolphins tied the game at 7 at the end of the first quarter, thanks to a Jay Ajayi touchdown run. And then throughout the rest of the game, it looked like the Dolphins were so very close at all times to blowing this thing up. And every time it happened, Kaepernick and the 49ers offense would come right back down the field and make it close again. The Dolphins at one point were up after a Leonte Carew touchdown, up 31-14 with 10 minutes left in the game. I'm thinking, this is going to be a celebration here in the last 10 minutes. And then the Dolphins win the game by 1 yard. Hey, I'm not looking for style points, Paul, at this point of the year. But man, oh man, they sure do make it interesting, don't they?
They really do. And I really think there's one element that really could have changed this for the Dolphins, which is the Dolphins have struggled with mobile quarterbacks. I'm telling nobody a secret here. One of the big things is they get in that wide 9. The linebackers have run coverage responsibility, but they also have pass coverage responsibility. So when most of your run defense falls to your linebacking core and they're peeling off in pass coverage once it's evident that it's not run, now they're leaving a lot of big wide gaps for a mobile quarterback to take advantage of. And Vance Joseph has done a very good job this season of getting it and adjusting to some of the, we'll call them, misconceptions that the defense has had at various points in time. I know early in the year it was Byron Maxwell and Tony Lippett playing too far off the ball, putting him at a disadvantage both in the short and long passing game, as well as some of the other ways that the defense was being deployed. So hopefully he figures out a way to set Miami up to spy a little bit better on mobile quarterbacks. On a positive note with that, though, now that Miami's the number 6 seed in the playoffs, I took a look at the playoff teams that are out there, and really there are not a whole lot of the playoff teams that have a super mobile quarterback for the Dolphins to worry about. Within the AFC, I know Carr's got some mobility, but he's not really a runner per se. I know Alex Smith from the Chiefs can take off on occasion, but in reality, he's a pass-first quarterback. And then you've got the Patriots. Brady's not super mobile, even though he's good at eluding pass rush. The Texans, it's Osweiler next. And the Ravens, Joe Flacco's got all the mobility of Bernie Kosar, who really is a franchise quarterback in the past for the Ravens, even though he was with the Browns at the time. So, I mean, you've got all the mobility of the Heisman on 3 out of the other 5 teams in the playoffs. So Miami's defense, if Vance Joseph can't get that sorted out, is still in position to play well against the teams that they'd be facing in the playoffs. And even when you look at the seeds just outside of playoff reach right now, there's still not a whole lot of scary mobile quarterbacks. Now, NFC-wise, you get the Seahawks with a mobile quarterback, and Dak Prescott does have some mobility as well, but really there's not a lot of mobility to worry about in the playoffs. So if they can figure it out for getting there, some way to patch it together, they're in good shape come playoff time.
Yeah, I think that's a good breakdown of why these mobile quarterbacks have success against the Dolphins. When they get into that wide 9, you've got the Cameron Wakes and the Andre Branches pushing their way up the field from the offensive tackle's outside shoulder. And then when they do that, the quarterback can step up and run through the middle of the field. Marcus Mariota had 60 yards rushing. Tyrod Taylor had 35. But they were able to, by and large, keep them under control. 60 yards may be a lot, but Tyrod Taylor, they kept under control. Kaepernick ran for 113 yards in this game. Unacceptable, but good thing is over 70 of them were in the first, 6-7 minutes of the game. So they did better, but still 113 yards, that's a lot. Kaepernick also threw for almost 300 yards, too. So again, taking all the what a moron this guy is out of the equation, had a great game. Looked like the Colin Kaepernick of old. Really hope that he doesn't round back into form so that we have to hear more about him as the years progress, but that's another subject entirely. So, Paul, let's take a look at the grades for the Dolphins. Let's start at the quarterback spot. Ryan Tannehill, 20 for 30 for 296 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and really that could have been 22 for 30 for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, if not for Devontae Parker's left arm, which is crazy to say. Parker could have ended up with an astronomical receiving day before he got hurt and left pretty early. So I really can't fault Tannehill whatsoever in this game. He took off at times and looked great. He had great play action fakes, and he looked completely focused, and he had a zip on the ball that I haven't seen from him. He had confidence. And one of the coolest things, I don't know if you saw it, there was video from after the game, after Kiko went sprinting up the field with no helmet, where he and Tannehill basically had a midair collision celebrating at midfield. And it's good to see what he's doing, the way he's been finally taking leadership, the way I haven't heard a damn Matt Moore chant in over a month, which is amazing to me. I haven't even heard Matt Moore's name from most Dolphins fans, which is phenomenal. Maybe we could finally get a better backup quarterback behind Tannehill in this offseason. But nothing short of an A for me here. He really led this offense in a tight, close game, and I love watching him play now.
I've got to give him an A as well. I mean, a few stats I'll throw out here is, yeah, you're right, Paul. He went 20 for 30, and without Devontae Parker's left arm, could have been 22 for 30 for 4 touchdowns and over 300 yards. Also factoring in, Jarvis Landry dropped a few passes. Kenny Stills dropped a 20-yard pass that was right in his hands, too. So you look at the last 66 minutes of football, Ryan Tannehill's 32 for 43, 443 yards and 5 touchdowns. And what I am very impressed by is that he is able to make plays now with his legs. I'm not talking about just running the ball, but creating time for himself. He doesn't always make the right read. He's got to improve that. But, yeah, very impressed with what I've seen out of Tannehill. The last 6 games, Ryan Tannehill has a quarterback rating of over 105. In 6 games is a big body of work. And you factor in Ajayi's gotten bottled up the last few games, and the offensive line has missing its top 3 players here for the last game and a half. Man, oh man. I'm excited with Ryan Tannehill, and I don't know if I've ever in my life with him been excited about him. I've always been satisfied. I mean, I've been satisfied at times. I've been underwhelmed at times. I don't think I've ever been excited about him being the quarterback. He's going to face 2 tests next couple of weeks, Arizona and Baltimore, that have better pass rushes and overall better defense. But anyway, I'm going on and on. I'm going to give him an A. Paul, Jay Ajayi, over the last 3 games, averaging just 3.8 yards a carry. How would you grade his performance at running back and the rest of the running backs too?
I think some of the fault with that does go with the fact that the line has allowed an odd amount of over-penetration at times throughout games, because you'll see him getting his carries, getting his yardage, and then you'll see suddenly they'll call a running play and there's 5 guys already in the backfield when he gets the handoff. I do think the offensive line has been admirable, but at the same time, we are playing with 3 backups right now. We're playing with Craig Urbick and Sam Young, who I think has done an admirable job and has done better than anybody ever could have expected, but also was wearing street clothes for a good portion of this season. I'm not going to fully fault him. I think he's done well with the opportunities he's gotten, and I'll give him a B here. I would like to see a little bit more out of him. I'd like to see him get back to blowing through holes and running over folks, but he has done that, mixed in with some of the the negative plays.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a C, very simply because 18 carries for 46 yards, not that impressive on the ground. But hey, the 49ers I thought had the right strategy here is, hey, we're going to bottle up Jay Ajayi, we're going to pressure Ryan Tannehill, and we're going to beat up this line that's missing 3 starters. And that was their plan, and it worked at times. But Ajayi, I say that, hey, this performance in the last 3 weeks haven't taken anything away with how I feel about the guy now. Hey, if you've got 9-man fronts and you're getting hit 2-3 yards in the backfield consistently, you're not going to be breaking enough tackles to be productive on the stat sheet. So moving forward, as the Dolphins get their offensive linemen back, I think we're going to start to see Ajayi run back into form. I think he's going to have 12 or 1,300 yards and make the Pro Bowl by the end of the year. But can't give him any higher than a C here just because of the stat sheet. Paul, receiving-wise, I'll take this one. Devontae Parker shows the ability to just simply roll out of bed and make amazing catches. And very easily, like you said, 3 catches for 64 yards could have been 5 catches for over 100 yards in back-to-back weeks. Kenny Stills is his usual self, makes a lot of mistakes and makes a lot of big plays. And I'll tell you what, you look at some of the catches, though, Kenny Stills has made this year. You look at the touchdown against San Diego that brought it from 10-0 to 10-7. You look at the 74-yard touchdown against the Bengals in the first drive of the game. You look at this game where Kenny Stills has a long touchdown again, and it makes the game 24-14. These are huge plays that are very, very impactful in the outcomes of these games. I swear, he's on pace right now for 700 yards and 7 touchdowns. I swear this past week I suggested Kenny Stills may get $7 million a year should the Dolphins give it to him. You would have thought I shot the president. People think $7 million a year? No way. Well, I'll tell you what, somebody that young who can get deep that often, good for him. Jarvis Landry, only 75 yards over the last 2 games. But I'm liking that the ball is being spread out a little bit more. Leonte Carew, first career touchdown, good for him. And Deion Sims played every snap last week. This week he didn't miss many snaps. He had four catches for 47 yards. I am quickly becoming a fan of this guy. And the Dolphins have Deion Sims as a free agent at the end of the year. I'm hoping they can get him back for cheap. Paul, few drop passes. The receivers could have played better in this game, but hey, they did come away with some big plays, and Deion Sims very impressed by he and Marquise Gray at tight end. Overall, I'm going to give him a B.
I'm actually going with an A- for these guys, and it very easily could have been higher if not for Devontae Parker's pesky left arm. But like you said with Kenny Stills, he makes impact play after impact play. If he made one more impact play, we'd be at 8 wins right now. But that was the first week of the year. It happened. He's made up for it since. And really, like watching Deion Sims rumble through everybody on that one reception over in the flat that should have been well short of the sticks and wound up going well past the first down. Watching some of those designed screens to Marquise Gray. Watching Leonte Carew get his first touchdown of the season. And Jarvis Landry, I think he's going to be fine. I think one of the big issues with him right now, my uncle and I both noticed during the game, there were times, and I know he's been nursing a shoulder injury, where you could see him kind of holding his arm close to his body and down, which you only do if the thing's killing you. So I really hope that whatever's going on with Jarvis's shoulder gets worked out, because you could see that that's probably one of the things that's been hampering him right now. But blocking-wise, these guys put their all in every play. Receiving-wise, they're all over the field right now. They're really helping Tannehill ascend, and it's easily an A- for me.
Yeah, and I'll stick on that point there too, Paul, is it actually may work out in the Dolphins' favor if they're looking at locking up Landry long-term after the season, because 75 yards in the last 2 games, he's now on pace for 93 catches and just under 1,100 yards. I did not want Jarvis Landry after the season to be in a position where he could say, you know what, back-to-back years I have 110 catches for over 1,200 yards, and I'm your team's fan favorite. Oh, and by the way, I'm also probably the best kick returner in the league if I were to be given those opportunities. I want to see Jarvis Landry back. I want him here long term, but I'm not paying him $15 million a year. I'd like to be around the $10 million a year mark, and that's a conversation for another day. So overall, very happy with the receiving unit, the talent that they bring, and the youth that they have too. Paul, the offensive line, we've touched on a lot of it. They've done an admirable job the last game and a half, but even if we don't give them the benefit of the doubt based on their talent level, how would you grade them?
I actually give these guys a B in this one. I almost gave them a B+ here. Juwan James played exceedingly well. Really, since he got benched early in the year, he's really responded, and I'm so happy to see that. Jerron Bushmont is absolutely steady at right guard. I'm actually a bigger fan than some people are of Steen at center. And then you look at Urbick and Sam Young, the left side of our line, the vaunted left side of our line that's supposed to be Laramie Tunsil and Brandon Albert, is Craig Urbick and Sam Young, two cast-off journeymen, and they are getting the job done while they're out there and holding the fort down. So for me, it's very easily a B, especially given the fact that over half of the line is replacements at this point, and it can only go up from here.
Yeah, admirable job for sure. I'm going to give him a C+ if I don't give him the benefit of the doubt. Ajayi, not many holes to run through, but then again, San Francisco was really charging the line of scrimmage. They were playing 8-9 man fronts throughout the game. Didn't surprise me that there weren't enough linemen to block them. And it goes back to what I said last year when I look at Craig Urbick and Bushrod and Anthony Steen. My problem with Dallas Thomas and Billy Turner is like, I'm just looking for veterans who are going to get the job done. Just do your job somewhat, which Turner and Dallas Thomas really could never get done. And so I think that Urbick and Bushrod, I hope the Dolphins can get him back cheaply over the next couple of years just to add some depth. Sam Young at left tackle did give up some pressures, and I think he's in way over his head. Given that, he didn't ruin the game, and that's all I can ask for. I might be the biggest Juwan James fan out there. I don't understand the animosity toward this guy. Yeah, he was a mid-first round pick, but Pro Football Focus has him ranked as the 28th best offensive tackle, not right tackle, offensive tackle in football. He's 24 years old. He's 6'6", 320. He doesn't let up that many sacks, does get pushed back sometimes, and I think his run blocking, especially downhill, has improved big time. I said last week, too, I would give Juwan James $8 million a year and a contract extension, and I think it's well worth the money for that. Overall, I'm going to give this unit a C+, but again, admirable stepping in the way that they did. Paul, moving to the defensive side of the ball, a lot of long drives from the San Francisco 49ers that almost ruined the game here against the Dolphins. A couple of sacks, though. An up and down game from this defensive line, too. How would you grade their overall performance?
I'd actually give these guys a B+. I mean, most of the run responsibility does not fall on their shoulders in the way this defense is schemed, so I've got to account for that. I thought Ndamukong Suh was absolutely a monster yet again, and I know Kiko Alonso gets a lot of credit for that game-saving play at the end, but if you look at it, Kaepernick wasn't getting in the end zone, and it was because of a superhuman effort by Ndamukong Suh. On that play. Kaepernick was already pretty well on his knees, bending over backwards away from the end zone with Sue hanging off of him when Kiko came in and just lit him up, which I love seeing. But it's Cam Wake. He was pressuring when he was able to when he got in the game. Andre Branch continues to show why Miami needs to lock this guy up. And really, you go up and down that defensive line, and everybody that played had some impact plays. So for me, it's very easy to give these guys a B+.
I'm totally with you on Andre Branch. I think he may be one of the most important people for the Dolphins to re-sign moving forward. If you don't re-sign Andre Branch, then you are, when you look at age, when you look at production, Cameron Wake is going to be gone in a few years. I don't care how well he's playing right now. Jason Jones is kind of a seat filler. Terrence Fede, Mario Williams are terrible. And Deion Jordan, of course, you can't depend on him, and he's going to be a free agent at the end of not this coming free agency, but the year after. So you don't re-sign Andre Branch, you're looking at a barren defensive end class there. And I look at Branch against Joe Staley. The first three quarters, I thought Staley controlled him very well, and I expected that. Staley's a great player, great left tackle. In the fourth quarter, I thought Branch really turned it on, got a sack, and I thought in the last two drives, not only did he create good pressure, but he was also dropping back into coverage a little bit, made a few big plays there too. Thought he should have done a little bit more spying there on Kaepernick. And Ndamukong Suh, a little bit quiet throughout the game, but a huge final drive. And you're right, Paul, what a Herculean effort there to stop Colin Kaepernick a yard shy. Cameron Wake does his usual thing, gets a sack, could have been more, had some pressures, just a constant nuisance there. There are several defensive ends and defensive tackles I'm hoping pick it up. Jordan Phillips has not been playing that well the last few weeks. Earl Mitchell was pretty quiet. Terrence Fede and Mario Williams, when you saw them on the field in place of Wake and Branch, man, you saw a huge drop-off. You didn't see any pass rush whatsoever. So overall, when you look at the fact that the 49ers had 180 yards on the ground, I don't blame that necessarily for all the defensive line, but they do share some of the blame. I'm going to give the unit a B-.
Yeah, and one thing I will say is I actually thought for really the first time this season, Mario Williams looked good in the beginning of this game before exiting with an undisclosed illness that Omar Kelly, I guess, described as he looked like he was at death's door when he saw him in the locker room after the game. So, I mean, if Mario Williams can pick up the slack and be even half of the player he used to be down the stretch here, that could be a pivotal thing for this Dolphins team. So hopefully we'll see that happen.
Yeah, he's got to be in there more consistently. I can't believe Terrence Fede was not cut after the Bengals game for his special teams gaffe, hitting the punter after the play. Tough guy. And then after that, he does nothing when he's out on the field. I mean, I understand Deion Jordan's not ready to play yet, but I'm thinking Terrence Fede's never ready to play. So you may as well get Jordan out there. Not to mention, he probably could have spied Kaepernick in this game simply because of his size and speed combination. But hopefully Jordan gets on the field throughout the end of the year because he could make an interesting difference. And I will say, too, I think the Dolphins missed Jason Jones in this game. Jones at least is consistent at D-end to defensive tackle. The linebacker spot, Paul, Kiko Alonso, great game with 12 tackles and an interception, and also had a hand in the final play of the game, too. What do you think about the linebackers?
Well, not just that. Don't forget he had the fumble recovery as well after Byron Maxwell forced that fumble.
Yeah, he did.
That was pretty important, too. I think Butler still continues to play okay. I really need to see more Neville Hewitt out there. Jelani Jenkins was back to meh in this game, but Kiko does continue to excel as we're moving forward here. So for me, I'd give these guys a B, but mainly and predominantly on the play of Kiko Alonso.
Yeah, I'm with you on not on the grade, but on the analysis. Kiko had a great game, 12 tackles, an interception, fumble recovery, and that last play of the game. And he just adds so much to the middle of that defense. But other than that, the outside linebackers, I mean, I'd give Kiko an A, and I'd give the outside linebackers an F. I mean, I thought Butler was his usual self. I thought Jelani Jenkins continues to have horrible football games where he misses tackles left and right, and he's also a step slow in coverage, which is unlike him. Neville Hewitt, a guy I've been really high on. I think he was up and down in this contest too. And you look here, Paul, at the how the Niners were able to move the ball. It was largely through these backup tight ends. You know, the Vance McDonald and Derek Carrier and these types of players who should not be getting open for 20, 30-yard gains. Shame on the outside linebackers. But overall, I'm going to give the linebacker unit a D+. I was not impressed. Actually, let's go with a C- because of Kiko Alonso, but I was not impressed with this unit in this game. Luckily, Alonso brings the grade up. How about the defensive back spot, Paul?
I know we had one game this year where they had 3 interceptions, but I think this was arguably the best game we've seen out of the secondary. I think Bakari Rambo probably played the best he's played since he got here. Issa Abdul-Qudus was inches away from a game-breaking interception. And then Byron Maxwell and Tony Lippett continue to give some pretty good receivers fits. They were blanketing these guys all day long, and really, if there's any unit that was a huge difference maker in terms of the outcome of this game, it was those guys. Because with Colin Kaepernick's mobility, they had to stay with their receivers a little bit longer than usual, and they got the job done. And Byron Maxwell continues to prove that he does belong here after all, after the miscues that we saw from him early in this year. Bobby McCain, I thought, had a phenomenal game as well. I can't leave him out of this because he's on the field a hell of a lot.
Yeah, I thought this was Bobby McCain's best game, too, as a Dolphin, all over the field. And, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I don't lay any of the blame to the defensive backs. I thought Bakari Rambo played a little bit better, probably the worst out of this unit still, but Michael Thomas and IAQ are making us, I'm not going to say forget about Rashad Jones, but they're filling in really well for him. At the corner spot, not tested all that often, but when they were, they largely answered the call. The wide receivers for the 49ers combined for just 12 catches. The leading guy was Rod Streeter with just 4 catches for 46 yards. Maxwell really cranked it up in the final drive, too. I mean, you look at the last 2 plays, was all over Torrey Smith. On the second to last play, and then in the final play, Kaepernick was looking toward Byron Maxwell, and Maxwell had his guy perfectly covered. Quarterbacks have only have 54.7% completion percentage this year, looking at Byron Maxwell's way. Really, since he was benched against Cincinnati, another guy who's answered the call is Byron Maxwell. And Tony Lippett, stepped slow on the Torrey Smith touchdown, but overall, I think he's getting better and better every week. I'm really excited to see this cornerback spot when Xavier Howard returns to the lineup too to help out. So I give them. I'm going to go ahead and give them a B+. A few issues with penalties, and the safeties did let up some plays to the tight ends in front of them. And hey, they did throw for 300 yards too. So I'm going to give them a B+ in the day. Paul, what's your grade for the defensive backs?
A- here.
Okay. Got it. So finally, the special teams unit, Kenyon Drake breaks another tackle. The kick returners, definitely talent-wise, when you look at Jarvis Landry, Jakeem Grant, Kenyon Drake, without question the most talented return unit in the league. But I tell you, Paul, I'm done with Jakeem Grant back there. This is his 3rd fumble in 3 games. Yeah, he got it back, but it pinned the Dolphins inside their own 10-yard line. Not saying we should cut the guy, but I think deactivating him for a couple of weeks would send the message. You can't not, as a kick returner, be turning the ball over. You're giving possessions away, and usually deep in your own territory too. And when he takes the ball out of the end zone, he rarely gets it back to the 25-yard line. So I want to see Jarvis Landry back there, especially when he's healthy. Matt Darr, again, fantastic game. Andrew Franks boots the ball out of the end zone all the time. Hits every kick that he's asked to make too. And the Dolphins did well controlling Ja'Cory Shepard on kick return and punt return too. So, Paul, overall, I'm going to give, besides the Jakeem Grant muff, that I thought this unit did very well. I'm going to give him a B+.
Yeah, this unit's another unit that I give a B+ to as well. Actually, I don't think Matt Darr had his best day as a Dolphin. He did have one short punt in a critical moment during this game. Luckily, it didn't come back to bite the Dolphins too hard. I thought the coverage units did well. Like you said, Kenyon Drake looked phenomenal returning the ball. I actually do not want to see Jarvis Landry returning punts, even though he's good at it. I do not want to see Jarvis Landry returning kicks, even though he, can obviously do the job. I think he's too critical to our offense. I'd rather see Kenyon Drake get a spin returning punts, which he hasn't done too often. But you know what? You watch what he can do on a kickoff return. Hopefully, he can do something with the punts as well. I'm not done with Jakeem Grant. I think he had those muffs a few weeks ago that really got into his head, and he needs to find his way out of it. And if it is being inactive for a couple of weeks, great. If it's finding a way to get him a little bit involved with some design screens and reverses on offense, great. Gase needs to figure out a way, though, to help him get that confidence back, because I think that's what is lacking for this guy right now. And we've seen how explosive he can be if given the chance. So I don't know. They need to figure something out with this guy, because he does have a hell of a lot of talent. But
I'm all for Jakeem Grant. I am all for Jakeem Grant finding his way out of this. I just want it to be done in practice, because right now, to me, he's the 3rd best kick returner on the team when you factor everything in, and I don't want to waste a roster spot on the active 45-man roster on game day for somebody a rookie who's trying to figure it out. I think those possessions are too important at this point. And I do want to see Jarvis Landry returning punts, because I think he's the best in the business at it. But anyway, Paul, what's your overall grade on the special teams?
It's a B+ as well. It's Frank's 5 for 5 on the kicks that he had for the day, kicked a bunch out of the end zone. Probably the strongest day we've seen from Frank's actually this season, which is great to see as we're hitting a very critical stretch here.
Yeah, and a very critical stretch indeed. And I tell you, I haven't done so in the show yet, but I've got to sing some praises for Mike Tannenbaum and how he's constructed this roster. I've never been a Mike Tannenbaum fan. I didn't like him with the Jets. I didn't like how he was the consultant for Steve Ross, and then he consulted that he become the general manager. Then Dennis Hickey gets ousted out of there, but I'll tell you what, I mean, you look at, besides the Mario Williams signing, you look at the drafts the last 2 years. In 2015, you get Devontae Parker, Jay Ajayi, Jordan Phillips, McCain, Lippett. And then 2016, you draft Laramie Tunzel. Xavier Howard, I think, will be a good player. Kenyon Drake, Leonte Carew, and Jakeem Grant, I think, are weapons for this organization. And then you look at a move I bashed at the time, trading from 8 down to 13. You come away with Laramie Tunzel, Byron Maxwell, and Kiko Alonso. I mean, that's looking like the trade of the century right now. I mean, I give so much credit to Mike Tannenbaum for putting this roster together, not to mention the offensive linemen you pick up off the street that have done a serviceable job too. Man, oh man, I get Mike Tannenbaum. I've gone from screw this guy, he needs to be fired now, what I was thinking in week 5, to man, oh man, this might be general manager of the year or whatever he is. I mean, front office guy of the year.
Note to self: in our review of San Francisco game, Cat complimented profusely Mike Tannenbaum. All right, sorry, I just had to write that down for a second because, wow. I mean, I'm with you on it, but you were definitely far the other spectrum from me on that one. He has done a phenomenal job here. I mean, we've got to remember he did build some pretty special things early on with our ever beloved New York Jets in the past that did implode, but he's really seemed to have learned from that and built a roster here with the help of Dennis Hickey, with the help of Chris Greer, with the help of the coaching staff that seems designed for the long haul, which is what I really want. I don't want 1 year success from this team. I want a team that in 15 years, people are sitting there still hating us as Dolphins fans, with all the other bandwagon fans out there following right along with the Dolphins, which, hey, welcome aboard. Get on now while it's good. I'm happy with the job he's done, and kudos to you for calling him out on that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I am. You just look at the last 2 drafts. I mean, to come away with a player like Devontae Parker, who's 6'4", 210, and can make the plays that he can when he's healthy, and Laramie Tunzel is probably a franchise left tackle. You're going to have these guys on rookie contracts. Jay Ajayi, probably a Pro Bowl running back, who gives your offense a completely different look and a different, powerful identity. I mean, you've got a lot of players on this offense. Even taking Tannehill out of the equation, you've got Jay Ajayi, Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills, Jarvis Landry, Jawan James, and Laramie Tunzel, who are not even 25 yet. I mean, that is a great sign of personnel coming together on this. So I do give Mike Tannenbaum all the credit in the world, because I dogged the guy for years. And it's not to say that this is over, but right now he's doing a great job.
And this is going to sound really odd to say here. Miami might have 2 young running backs that are in their first couple of years in the league here that go to the Pro Bowl this year, because there is that outside shot that Kenyon Drake could claw his way in the return game.
Yeah.
You never know. So Miami could logistically end up sending Jay Ajayi and Kenyon Drake to the Pro Bowl.
Yeah,
Ryan Tannehill has made his argument. Kenny Stills, Devontae Parker, Jarvis Landry, they've all made arguments, as have various people on the offensive line. Tight end, I hate to break it to you folks, I like Deion Sims, I like Marquise Gray. Don't love Jordan Cameron, who's obviously not going. They're not going anywhere. But numerous other positions around the offense, numerous positions on the defense. Miami could be sending a lot of people to the Pro Bowl. And I hate to break it to folks, Miami might be in the playoffs, so they have a shot at not sending anybody to the Pro Bowl. So, yeah, absolute kudos out there.
Yeah, Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker, if they hadn't got hurt, then maybe we'd be talking about it. I think Parker was too far behind, and I think Landry now is not going to have the numbers. But I understand your point on that. Overall, I think Ajayi, Ndamukong Suh, and Cameron Wake end up going to the Pro Bowl from the Dolphins. Yeah, and we were talking about the running back spot at the beginning of the year. as, hey, this is a unit we can expect to be weak. I can't remember the numbers I gave a few weeks or last week, but it was like, who would have thought that our running backs would be combined for 5.3 yards a carry, 14 overall touchdowns, and we might be sending 2 running backs to the Pro Bowl. I mean, who would have thought that? Again, another sign of good personnel coming together and a coach in Adam Gase. We have found our guy here and there. So, Paul, we've gone pretty far past our time here, but hey, we've got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. So anything else you'd like to add tonight, Paul?
Not so much. I'm ecstatic. I'm really hoping Miami can get one of the toughest games they've got left over the next few weeks out of the way here against the Ravens. If they can beat the Ravens, that really sets them up well for a lot of head-to-head scenarios that could come up with the playoffs. So this is definitely a very critical game for them here moving forward, because essentially beating the Ravens gives a couple of teams in the NFC North a chance to possibly take over up there, and that is a little more, which Miami would have control the head-to-head against them, and it could be a very critical game when push comes to shove after Week 17. So this is going to be a big one coming up. I know we got a lot to talk about throughout the week this week.
Yeah, we're going to have Alex Benty on giving us the Ravens preview from the other sideline. Look out for that this week. And it's incredible when they play. If the season ended today, the Miami Dolphins would be the number 6 seed in the playoffs based on a tiebreaker. And by the time they play the Ravens on Sunday, it will have been 55 days since the Dolphins last lost a football game on October 9th. Can you believe that? So, man, oh man, if they beat the Ravens and they get a leg up here in the wild card, it's exciting. But hey, if they lose to the Ravens, they lose to the Cardinals, they're back down to 7-6. Now we're talking about an 8-8 season again. So best of luck to the Dolphins here moving forward. Overall, I think they've already exceeded our expectations. So that'll do it for us here. You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on iTunes and YouTube. I'm Brian Catanzaro, joined by Paul Picken. You can follow us on Twitter as well. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side. Solo D, take us home.
It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side.
Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what Brian, Cat, and Paul about to do again. We rep our team, you can't change, stop, or ruin it. All we need is to figure what to do to win. Fans Radio, live and direct. Win or lose, we showing up for every contest. No puppet talk, it's all raw and unfiltered. Voice of the fans when the season looks peculiar. Rockin' apple orange over here, then you familiar. Every week they coming through our speakers to fulfill the crave we have to hear about our team and all the latest news. Vets the rookies trying to make the team paying dues. Current players and alumni interviews. City to city, state to state, follow the moves. Call the hotline, Dolphins talk set to go. Best sports team and show all across the globe.
It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side.
Who that?
So low, so low, so low, deep. So low, so low, so